Yes. Now he always has time for his fans. When you use a bird to write with, it's called...
Welcome to The Rock.
Welcome indeed to the first of many essential breakdowns of different film stars, film genres, and other things that I think are vaguely interesting. In honour of Red Nose's launch tomorrow night on Netflix, we're going to have a look at how Dwayne The Rock Johnson became the biggest and most well-paid movie star in the world, and how he built that persona or character that he has done so well. The Essential Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Woman, I am the cavalry.
I love all of the roles he's done. I am a massive fan, I have to confess, even the stupid ones. So I've put together this category of different things that he has done and shown the development and then stagnation from his humble beginnings as a wrestler, following in his father's footsteps, following in his grandfather's footsteps, and building a screen persona as the Rocky Mavia character, and then on into The Rock later on, something that he then parlayed into his film career very, very successfully. A very clever man. Here in that 70s show, playing his own father in a glorified cameo where he promotes himself.
No, I got a son. And one day, he's gonna become the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. Yeah, well, good luck with that, man.
And then he turns up pretty much again as himself in Star Trek Voyager. Watch here as you get the eyebrow, the people's eyebrow. Fantastic. I was never a wrestling fan, I have to confess. I came to Dwayne Johnson much later, when he started actually doing proper films. I didn't watch Voyager, wasn't a fan of Voyager. Here we go.
Popularity of The Mummy Returns and of course the success of the WWF. I'm sure you've been offered a lot of parts. How did you decide that Scorpion King was going to be the first leading role that you did?
We thought, number one, with the built-in audience of The Mummy Returns, that it was a great idea, as well as the character of the Scorpion King is just such a profound, larger-than-life character.
How they ever thought this CGI here would be a successful thing, I do not know, but somehow he managed to parlay that into a hugely successful first launch. If you're lucky enough to track down the DVD, I would imagine you should, because there is a commentary track by Dwayne Johnson on there, which is well worth listening to. He pokes a lot of fun at himself, as he's very good at doing, but this film here perfectly encapsulated what he was coming in to be. He was coming in to replace Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger replaced John Wayne, a guy who plays a specific character on screen in every movie, and then redoes it again and again and again. Here is Dwayne Johnson's version of Conan.
I know the prophecy.
An outstanding first go. Look at the muscles, the arrows, the explosions, the cheese.
Trained for generations in the deadly art. Will you stand alone before the fury of his armies?
I will. And they had flushing toilets back in the early days. That's handy too. But again, it was a fantastically great, fun, entertaining film to bring him into the public eye. Launching off the back of the Mummy films, it did significantly better than the Mummy 3, and it really did capture what he was trying to achieve. Here he's still being billed as The Rock. He hasn't quite established the Dwayne Johnson role there. Here's Schwarzenegger! Schwarzenegger gave his nod to respect. This is my favourite film, my favourite of all of his films, The Rundown. It's a little bit Commando, a little bit Raiders of the Lost Ark. Directed by Peter Berg, a really underrated guy who does fantastic action movies. Outbays Michael Bay. This is probably the last time Sean William Scott was ever on a billing with Dwayne Johnson. Rosario Dawson, Christopher Walken, This is a fantastic film, look at that. The fight scenes are epic. He still has hair. It's shot beautifully. There's a kind of touch of Indiana Jones, possibly romancing the stone between these two. Ooh, that looks like it hurts. But you can see from this that there was a lot of high production values. There was some fantastic stunt work, amazing special effects for the budget. This came out in 2003, and this was the film that sold me on The Rock and Dwayne Johnson as a future action star. Not really the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King was a joke. But this was the commando of his I'm replacing Arnie role. Not quite so aggressively violent. Much more fun. Much more interesting. Christopher Walken having a huge amount of fun playing this part. And you get cameos of people like Ernie Rees Jr. here. Look at him. He's fantastic. You might remember him from Turtles 2, My Secret Bodyguard. Fantastic Disney classics. Surf Ninjas being one of my personal favourites. But look at the way this is done. Outstanding violence. Still with the fight violence.
Got the moves. Give you that.
And I tacked on a little bit on the end here because of the way Walken just owns this role. Nobody else can get away with you ingrate Oompa Loompas. We move on to number 3. Walking Tall, a remake of a Joe Don Baker film, a series that then carried on being its own series. By this point, he's decided to move away from that kind of persona that he'd already started to set up. He's got a less muscly Rock, still hair, trying to act. This was an interesting deviation from what was going to become the Rock persona. Still fighting, still tough, still an action film of sorts, but not in the same vein as we're going to look into later of the super muscly action films. And there's Kobe Smulders in the car there. I wouldn't recommend checking out Walking Tall 2 and 3. Kevin Sorbo does not have the same presence as The Rock, but Walking Tall is a very entertaining entry to The Rock. Race to Witch Mountain, on the other hand, is one of my firm favourites. This is fantastic. He's still deviating from his big rock persona. He isn't working out the same as he does later in life. He's still got hair. Much more acty. And, to be fair, this is where he really kind of cements the kind of working in kids' movies funny aspect of his persona. Great special effects. Again, it's a Disney movie. It's quite fun. It's another remake. If you want to check out Escape from Witch Mountain, you can do that one too. It's probably on Netflix somewhere. One of the things that endears me to this guy is the fact that he is just so happy to take the piss out of himself. Never takes himself too seriously. This is highly recommended. For those of you who haven't seen him in anything other than his later Fast and Furious punchy roles, this is well worth checking out. If it's on Netflix, if it's on Amazon or whatever, have a look, see if you can find it. It's well worth tracking down.
Of course it is. You are in way over your head.
Good little special effects, good cast list. The Rock fights a robot from outer space. There's magic powers, all sorts of clever things.
You know how to fly this thing, right?
I think we got it.
You crashed, remember?
And now we come to the biggest change. Fast and Furious, or as I like to think, the problem with Hobbs.
Listen up. The men we're after are professional runners.
Let's hear from
Guaranteed to go down the hardest possible way.
the director, Justin Lin, on why he picked Dwayne Johnson.
And we bring them back.
And obviously here you see Hobbs, played by Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He was always my first choice. I got excited when we decided to bring everybody back, and I realized right there and then we needed a antagonist who's bigger than life, who could stand up to Vin and to be able to opposing force. And The Rock was my first choice, and I didn't know if we were going to get him, but having that meeting with Dwayne, who is the ultimate professional, he asked the right questions, and for him to want to be a part of this, it meant everything. I think having him be a part of this was big. I feel like for many reasons, that validation of someone of his stature to want to come and join us, I think that created a really great energy on set. And to have him on there also got everybody pumped up, physically, mentally, to want to bring their...
So the problem with him, obviously, from my point of view, I loved Hobbs. I thought this was the best thing they ever did to the Fast and Furious franchise, and I thought he was a brilliant character. Originally conceived to be a sort of Tommy Lee Jones from The Fugitive, but with steroids. And here he goes toe-to-toe with Vin Diesel in the film, tracking him down, chasing him down, and essentially out-muscling what is the hero of the franchise. And that is where the problem lies, of course, because The Rock got brought in by a Facebook conversation that Vin Diesel had with some fans about who they wanted to see him fight. So they picked him and he got in, and then Dwayne Johnson became the bigger part of the franchise. He became the powerful force. Vin Diesel just doesn't compete, and that's where the problem lies. In that, he kind of outshone the series by being too powerful, too superhuman. He's referenced as Captain America there, he's referenced as Samoan Thor later on in this same one, Fast 6. He's referenced as Hercules, as a little wink to the audience because he was away filming Hercules during Fast 7. Each of these things obviously is there to cement what became The Rock's persona. Now we've got the shaven head, we've got the goatee beard, we've got the massive muscles, and they get ever bigger with every single film he's ever done. And that persona has what's been carried over from the Fast and Furious franchise into all his other roles. You'll see later on, when we look at those, how much that has cemented in. Look at the pictures at the beginning of the video and you'll see they all look identical. He has the t-shirt, he has the muscles, he has the shaven head. You could transplant one character from Baywatch into Skyscraper, into any of the other films, and it's the same role, which is the genius behind the screen persona. It's what John Wayne did, it's what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. It made them hugely rich, and it's made him hugely rich. And by this point here in Fast 8, when he's literally become Superman, kicking the torpedo out of the way of the trucks, is the point where I think Vin Diesel went, no, I've had enough. I am not being second wheel in my own movie. He can get bent. I want to come back and I want to be the superhero. But obviously, the people with the money were smart enough to realise that where the money was with Dwayne Johnson. So they let him have his own franchise, his own spin-off, with Jason Statham in Hobbs and Shaw, queued up for us nicely in Fast 8, and here where it really does go right round to him becoming Captain America, as you can see from this moment. Oh, love it. But he and Jason Statham had fantastic chemistry in Fast 8. It was a brilliant idea to bring them in to do Hobbs and Shaw. But that character was carried over into Journey 2 here, where shaven head, big muscles. I mean, he's not OP superpowered the way he is in Fast and Furious, and it's another fun Disney adventure movie, one of which he's so good at. This is why Jungle Cruise works so well, this is why Red Notice will be brilliant. All of these films, I was so sad to hear they weren't going to do Journey 3 with Michael Caine along for the ride, because Michael Caine and Dwayne Johnson really bounce off each other brilliantly, like insults and so on. And Louise Gutzman here, also fantastic. This, interestingly, is another sequel from Journey to the Centre of the Earth with Brendan Fraser. the young lad here whose name I can't remember right now is the only one who carries over from Journey to the Center of the Earth, but that's why this is Journey to the Mysterious Island. And one of the other reasons why Dwayne Johnson got labelled as franchise Viagra by the Empire magazine in the UK is because he tended to get drafted into sequels to make them get sold. Obviously that didn't work with the Journey franchise because the Journey 3 never happened, but it certainly did work with the Fast and Furious, because Fast 5 fast outsold all of the previous films and reinvigorated it into being a heist movie franchise. But to be fair, he is able to come into most of these films playing the same role and still draw the audiences, bring the money, and that's why we're talking about him today. This film was very successful at the box office. It had a lot of appeal to a wider audience, and quite a lot of that would be down to the man we're talking about here. Of course, the terrible thing about this was the bad attempts at 3D, which did not work. Great film.
Getting the attention of a woman is one of the hardest things to do. So you have got to do this. What is that? The peck pop of love. Now go on and throw a berry. Boom.
Now we bring on to Hercules.
When I first broke into Hollywood, Hercules was one of the first properties that I asked about, that I was curious about, and I would love to make. So Hercules has been a passion project of mine for a very, very long time.
No matter how fast you run, no matter how far you go, the beast will follow. Man cannot escape his fate. Hercules.
Your name is a rallying cry.
I'm not convinced by the hair. It's a fantastic wig. The special effects are fantastic. I'm not also a great fan of Brett Ratner's work generally, but let's be honest, he's right. When he came to Hollywood, Arnie started as Hercules. Steve Reeves as Hercules is what inspired most of the muscle builders to get into the business in the first place. Hercules was the gold standard. It was the film that all of these muscle guys wanted to do, and this is probably one of the better versions of it. Legend of Hercules is a terrible, terrible knockoff version of that with Kellen Lutz. Came out at the same time, sunk without a trace, because let's face it, if you're going to watch Kellen Lutz as Hercules or The Rock, who are you going to pick? Plus, the cast list here is quite good. You've got Ian McShane. He has some cracking one-liners. Joseph Fiennes is brilliant. So many people in this. Rebecca Ferguson, people that are hugely successful today. But the effects in this were something that really sold me on it. I'm a big fan of sword and sandal epics. I did like Scorpion King, has to be honest. This one is the more budgeted version of that. It's a bigger budget, it's a fancier, handier special effects movie, and Hercules is of course one of the biggest properties. You can see why he fought for it, you can see why he wanted it, and it showcases what it is about that Dwayne Johnson that is such a selling point. I had to include G.I. Joe. I know it's a terrible film, but it's got ninjas fighting down mountainsides and The Rock with a minigun. So, sorry, but I'm unapologetically a big fan of this film. Rise of Cobra was dire. This one, I thought, was a hugely better sequel. Another example of The Rock franchise Viagra. It didn't actually managed to invigorate into the franchise that Hasbro and everybody else wanted it to be, although I still prefer this one to Snake Eyes that came out just recently. Jonathan Pryce plays a passable attempt at being Donald Trump, I think, and you know, it pokes fun at North Korea. It kills off Channing Tatum. No disrespect to Channing Tatum, but I thought that was a good move, carrying over from what he did with Rise of Cobra. And it gets The Rock with a minigun. And listen to that bass.
world ain't saving itself.
And to be fair, this is a far better incarnation of Snake Eyes than the film that devoted its entire runtime to Snake Eyes. I don't see why this wasn't a success. It's a very entertaining film. It has most of the things that you would look for in an action movie. There's ninjas fighting down mountainsides. Come on! How could you not love that? If you enjoy an action movie of any kind, ninjas fighting down mountainsides has to be something that you want to be involved in. Get in.
We have to assume that there's no one we can trust.
There is one man.
Yeah.
Alright?
Yeah. You alright?
My cholesterol's a little high.
I think Bruce almost tried there. Just a little bit. Now, this was his move into the more serious area of being an action hero. San Andreas is a great film. Again, it's moving into kind of solid Arnie territory where the size and the proportions are not really explained too well, other than the fact he's got some sort of Army Special Forces history. At one point, he tears an entire car door off its hinges just because he can. So it tends towards the slightly more edgy side of realistic. But most of what happens in this film, like any other disaster movie, is done very well. You genuinely feel for the characters. The relationship between him and his wife is quite plausible. They're of an age as opposed to being inexplicably wrong. It's got Paul Giamatti in it, which is just always a selling point. And obviously the special effects again are a fantastic example of what a disaster movie can do. Alexander Daddario there.
You will feel it on the East Coast.
I love you, Dad.
That's right, you punch down that building.
Cannot emphasize this enough. You need to get out, and I mean now.
Yeah.
If you can't, God be with you.
All right, hold on. We gotta get over it before crest.
But you can see why these films became such successes. Not only does he have the charisma and star power to pull something like this along.
Welcome to Behemoth.
This was a left curve,
The elite of the
a remake of a bad TV show from my childhood, where he took over the David Hasselhoff
a
role
little bigger. And don't talk
and
about
became a very good interpretation of Mitch Buchanan in Baywatch. Again, another perfect choice for someone like Dwayne Johnson. He's muscled, he's tall, he solves problems and fights crime, but also it showcases the more comedic aspects of it. I like the way he's teamed up with Zac Efron here,
don't give up. Training begins at
and Alexander Daddario's in this again. They pay a decent enough respect to the silliness of the show, but also a lot of respect to what people actually enjoyed about it. It started off as an action-adventure show and sort of dipped into being a bit more of a joke by the time it got towards its end tenure. And the film does the same. It has a solid action plot, it has a solid aspect of it, and it has a fine sort of touch on the silliness of what you'd get.
our beach, and it all started once.
Plus you have Indian Katherine Heigl,
We're gonna have to do what they watch
before she married the Jonas brother, obviously.
We'll probably die.
What? No.
And it's great fun, and it's great entertainment. It has some great epic scenes.
Make sure swim happy white people don't drown.
Why does she always look like she's running in slow-mo?
She's the reason I believe in God. We gotta go undercover.
It certainly has better special effects than the original show it's based on. and nobody ever dressed up as a woman when they weren't one in the original show. But you can see how he's still happy to poke fun at himself in a very silly way. And Zac Efron also.
Why are we in the morgue? You gotta get some hard evidence. What's coming? What do we do now? Now we hide. Where?
They're laying on a dead old lady. Our drawers are empty. Why'd you pick that drawer?
It's not a distributor. It's just a little dead man's fat. Necrotic liquid fat that we use up in a baby. That's it. I'm out.
Oh, now CIA. Central Intelligence. There's some special effects there to make him into placing his face onto this poor guy's.
Well, there's no coming back from that.
Once again, past that entry point, we get back to the same character ride that we've got here. Big, tall, muscly, somewhat mocking of his own size and physique.
I worked out 6 hours a day, every day, for the last 20 years straight.
But this is where Johnson started to work seriously with some real action directors. Director of We're the Millers, director of Horrible Bosses.
I got a plan.
But this one is the real reason why he's become a success, I think. It's not a great film. It's not one of his strongest films, but it is an entertaining film. It gives a broader audience with broader humour, but still keeps in with a Bond-style franchise. Originally, many years ago, he was tipped to be in Spy Hunter as a movie. And he often plays roles where he is the special agent of some sort. Again, following that Hobbs persona that was laid out in 2010, where the Rock's physique is somehow unexplainable, but also indestructible.
Which car are we taking? Not that one. Oh my God. Oh God.
Chose to be an international CIA spy.
Because I don't like movies.
You were like Jason Bourne in George.
As you can see, the costume choices often mock the, while still showcasing the muscles, but mocking the masculinity of the character.
Backflips you used to do? Let's do the flip. That was so close.
You'll have plenty of time to figure that out while you're...
Again, this is carrying over into the Hobbs character. You have a little weird geeky guy turning into The Rock in the video game.
For those who seek to find a way to
Also teaming up again with Kevin Hart. One of the many times they sort of work together.
character and you're that person in the game.
Which one do I pick?
Jumanji as a film back in '95 was a great sort of Robin Williams comedy. This is an interesting kind of update and reboot for the series. It did very well. It got a sequel in Jumanji The Next Level. They're kind of both lumped in together here because they are similar. And it gets The Rock to kind of diversify out a little bit. He's playing somebody who's not him. And he pokes a lot of fun at himself, pokes a lot of fun at his regular screen persona, the Hobbs character, by being a young boy stuck in that character. Again, quite entertaining. If you're coming into The Rock off the back of comedy movies, this is a good one to come into. It's a good broad film to get younger audiences maybe to watch. Now, this was where pre-Hobbs, in Be Cool, Elmore Leonard actually said he had written the role with The Rock in mind, and when you look at the way he is played, it's a 6'4" Samoan wrestler who does an eyebrow to please his fans. It isn't difficult to believe that Elmore Leonard had actually got The Rock in mind when he wrote the character. And then, of course, they cast him.
So let's evacuate.
I had to include Doom because this is probably the one and only time that The Rock is not top billing next to these two. At this point, he isn't Dr. McCoy yet. And this was one of the early roles in between being muscled and being a wrestler, where he is actually properly acting. Again, had the hair. It's a really good film, demonstrating his acting skills, something that made me sad when he got stuck into the Hobbs character and that he could have done so many different things. Get Smart, again, another.
Dwayne Johnson.
If they ever wanted to make an Agent 23 film.
Agent 23 is the greatest agent on the planet. Very self-aware of how good he is.
I could have handled it, Mike.
And is not afraid to let anybody know. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. When you're an agent, when you're a soldier, when you're out there, you live for those field wars.
Game over, and I say it's over.
Okay. Right, Willie. When he's not out there doing his thing, he gets a little aggressive. Were you the last one to use the copier?
Yeah.
You left it jammed.
So?
Is this your stapler?
Yeah. Did they show you how to use it?
No. Now, why don't you unjam that?
Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's a formidable force. It's very emasculating to even be in a room with him because he sweats testosterone, whereas I sweat estrogen.
23, you're bleeding.
It's just a bad joke, Steve.
Steve.
Hi, Steve.
The improv is crazy fun, I know. If you're on the set and you're watching us improv and you're looking at all of us and going, God, how does Dwayne do that? I know. It's a gift. It's a gift.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm hoping you'll go out and seek out Red Notice on Netflix, that you'll seek out some of his back catalogue and enjoy The Rock as the awesome film star that he really is. He's the last probably great movie star that we have left, in that he can turn up and do pretty much any film, make it his own, like Arnie used to back in the day, and it will still make money. There is no Dwayne Johnson film that does not smash its box office every time.
Mr. T and Sting and The Rock, you think those guys are real? That's a bunch of dumbass nicknames by a bunch of dumbass people.